Hari Om everyone. Let us begin our third night of this Ramayana, Tulsi Ramayana Yajna. We will begin with our invocation prayers and then we will continue with our chanting and reflection of the Mangala Charanam shlokas of this Tulsi Ramayana. Okay, so let us all invoke grace and blessings of Bhagwan. Vajratuण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् जय जय राम 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 just chant our Mangalacharanam. First two Mangalacharana shlokas. Chant along with me. Varnanam artha sanghanam rasanam chandasamame Mangalanam cha kartaram Devani vinayako Bhavani Shankarau Vande Shraddha Vishwasa Rupino Yabhyam Vina Na Pashyate Siddha Swantastameshwara. Our Tulsi Ramayana, this Balakanda, the very first chapter, the very first section, begins with Goswamiji's prostrations, namaskara, the Mangalacharana shlokas in Sanskritam to Bhagwan Shri Ganesha and Saraswati Mata, followed by Bhagwan Shiva and Parvati Mata, where Bhagwan is invoked both from the standpoint of the one who is writing this text, composing this text, Goswamiji as the author, in order to ensure that this Tulsi Ramayana is most befitting as a work of poetry that may it have the right words, the right meanings, may it express the right sentiments, emotions, may it align with the correct meters, and may it bring benefit, may it be auspicious, may it bring benefit to those who read it. With this intention, Goswamiji does invocation to Saraswati Mata and Bhagwan Shri Ganesha. And from our standpoint, the one who is listening, the Shrota, then may we also not only listen to this Tulsi Ramayana, but also may we be able to imbibe the teaching, imbibe the lesson, and simply develop love for the Lord. That love which should reflect, express as surrender to Bhagavan, Sharanagati. With this intention also, this Mangalacharanam is offered. The next Mangalacharanam, second Mangalacharanam we saw yesterday also, Vande Bhavani Shankarau, offering salutations. Goswami says, I offer salutations to Bhagwan Shiva and Parvati Mata, who are the very embodiments of Shraddha and Vishwasa. So yesterday we saw a little detail. What is this Shraddha and this Vishwasa? So that Shraddha should be there to start my journey. That reverence and respect for the teaching, the teacher, for everything that is in front of us now in the form of satsang, reverence should be there. And with that reverence, I start my journey. I start my study, my sadhana, my worship, my prayers. And that Shraddha should lead to Vishwas, wherein not only simply do I have reverence for the scripture, the teaching, but also I practice, imbibe, apply what I learn. There was a time in our culture, especially in the West, in Trinidad also, in the US also I'm sure, where our Shastra, our books, our scriptural books were just kept at the altar. I don't know how many of you all would have experienced such a time, where that Bhagavad Gita or Ramayana is kept nicely at the altar every day. It is clean and arti is done to it every day. But does anyone ever open the book? So Shraddha is there, a reverence for the teaching, the text is there. But not knowing the value of what I am doing arti to every day. That book contains solutions to my problems. That I don't know. So only when I enter into such, with that Shraddha, I enter into that study, into that sadhana, will I know what benefit that scripture can bring to my life. Not just simply to do arti to. That Vishwas should develop, where I know, this has something to offer me and therefore I should practice in my life. I should implement in my life. So to Bhagwan Shiva and Parvati Mata, who represent this, they are the very embodiments of this Shraddha and Vishwasa. Without which, Yabhyam Vina. Without these two qualities, without that reverence to start my journey, and the reverence and faith to practice also, without these two, Siddhaha na Pashyanti. Those who are striving, they will not see, they will not recognize. Recognize what? Ishwaram Swantastham. They will not recognize that Paramatma, that Bhagwan who is within themselves only. That Bhagavan seated in their hearts, they will not be able to recognize. And therefore, Goswami says, we offer prostrations, namaskar. So, Vande to Bhagavan Sri Ganesh, Mother Saraswati, Mata Parvati, and Bhagavan Shiva. Now, who comes next? Whom should we offer salutations to next? After offering salutations to Bhagavan Sri Ganesha, Saraswati Mata, Parvati Mata, Bhagavan Shiva, now who comes next? So now Goswamiji beautifully, and we will see the unique feature of this verse, now offers salutations to Guru. So now we will chant. Today Rupam will repeat. Unmute. Vande bodhamayam nityam.
Vande bodhamayam
Gurum Shankara Rupinam.
Gurum Shankara Rupinam
Yamashrito Ivakropi. Chandra Sarvatra Vandyate. Together everyone. Vande bodhamayam nityam Gurum Shankara Rupinam Yamashrito Hivakropi Chandra Sarvatra Vandyate. Again, Vande. See, that verb is coming again. Each shloka there is that verb. Vande, Vande, Vande. I offer salutation. So Goswamiji says, now I offer salutations, I offer prostrations to whom? Vande bodhamayam nityam gurum. I offer salutations to Guru. Guru means what? So see the vision of Goswamiji, which shows also that Goswamiji belongs to a tradition, a parampara, who understands Guru doesn't simply mean anyone who teaches me. A Guru Shabda, the word Guru itself has a very potent meaning in our scripture. Many times there are words like Adhyapaka, that means teacher. Acharya, that means spiritual guide. But Guru, that Shabda Guru, has a very potent meaning. And what is that meaning? So simply if we were to look at the word Guru, and many of us would have come across this meaning before, the Gu word and Guru word is made up of two syllables, Gu and Ru. Gu means Gukaras Andhakarascha. Gu means Andhakara. Andhakara means darkness, ignorance. Rukaras Tannivartakaha. And Ru means that which removes ignorance. Tannivartakaha. So Guru means what? A Gu means ignorance, and Ru means the one who removes ignorance. So Guru means that being, that personality who removes ignorance in our lives is called as Guru. But which type of ignorance? Ignorance about math and physics and chemistry and biology? The ignorance about my infinite nature. Ignorance about who I am. The one who removes that ignorance is called Guru. Atma Ajnanam, the one who removes. He or she is called as Guru. And that Guru in our Shastra, in our scriptures, is not considered to be just another walking, talking package of flesh, blood and bones. In the tradition of study of Shastra, the Guru represents none other than a manifestation of Bhagavan. And therefore, the vision that one has, the bhavana that one has for one's teacher, one's guru, means the one who is going to remove my ignorance about my infinite nature. That bhavana is expressed here by Goswamiji in this third Mangalachara. See now what adjectives are used for guru. So now there are 3 adjectives for guru. So we are going to see each of these 3 today. Vande bodhamayam gurum. First adjective is a guru who is bodhamayam. Bodhamayam means what? So we are all familiar with Chinmaya, Tejomaya. What is Bodhamaya? So Bodhamaya means the one who is the very embodiment, manifestation, form, swarupa, nature of Bodha, knowledge. Knowledge not in the sense knowledge of something, but knowledge as in that consciousness which illumines, enlivens this entire universe. That consciousness is in the form of Guru. So when I see Guru, when I see teacher, when I see my Guru, I should not see Guru as a man or a woman, as a person, but I should envision that Guru to be none other than that Chaitanya Chit Swarupa Paramatma, Bodhamayam Guru. Means I should visualize my teacher as consciousness. Consciousness meaning the absolute reality, Paramatma, who is now in the form of my teacher. Now you may ask, why I have to see teacher as Bodhamayam? Why can I not see teacher as a man just as I see any other teacher in any other field? So you see, there are many reasons for that, but we will take simply a couple of points. See, generally, whenever we look at any human being, we get involved in a dual vichara or dual thinking process of seeing that person's guna and dosha. In our lives, think every person that we interact with, generally our style or approach of interacting with every person in our lives is to recognize their strengths, their gunas, their good qualities, and also their limitations, their doshas. And based on that guna dosha comparison, we interact with them accordingly. Now, when it comes to the study of this highest knowledge of Vedanta, if our mind is to become clouded at any point with any thought process of guna or dosha in teacher, that clouding of or impression of teacher will cloud the understanding of the teaching. And therefore, to have uncontaminated understanding of the teaching, it is said, don't color the teacher with any guna dosha sambandha, any relationship with strengths or weaknesses, or likes or dislikes, raga or dosha. Don't say, I like this about the teacher, but I don't like this about the teacher. This is good about the teacher, this is bad about teacher. Neither. See teacher as Chaitanya, consciousness, Brahma. Because once I start doing this dual vichara, I start splitting good, bad, this is I like, I don't like. Then what happens? With the teaching also I will start doing this. Which means I will study Vedanta and I will only apply the things which I like. And I am actually studying Vedanta to remove my likes and dislikes. But now because of my mind being contaminated, I am now also applying raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes to Vedanta also. Means I pick and choose which sadhana to do, which instruction to follow and which not to based on what? My likes and dislikes. But the very purpose of the sadhanas are what? The very purpose of the sadhanas is to remove raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. So the key point to note here is, when one visualizes one's teacher, the one who is giving us this highest knowledge, as none other than being of the nature of consciousness, means that is Paramatma only in the form of Guru, then I don't cloud the teacher, and therefore as a result of that, that teaching can be passed on without me contaminating it. And that is the main purpose behind visualizing teacher in that manner. Of course, in our tradition it is said the entire knowledge, the entire sampradaya, the entire passing on of this teaching comes from whom? Sadashiva Samarambha, Shankaracharya Madhyama, starting from Bhagwan Shiva only. The teaching itself has started from Bhagwan Shiva. He is Adi Guru. From Bhagwan Shiva only the entire teaching has come. And therefore, the entire Guru Parampara, the entire succession of teachers which come, they all are representatives of Bhagwan Shiva only. With that bhavana also, the student has towards Guru. So first adjective, Bodhamayam Guru. Of course, many of you all know, my Acharya is none other than Swami Bodhatmananda. So I also, it is very easy for me to connect to Vande Bodhamayam Gurum. Now second adjective is given for Gurum, Vande Nityam Gurum. Nityam Gurum. Nitya means what? Nitya means eternal, timeless, changeless. What? Guru is eternal, timeless, changeless? One day this Guru is eating this, next day I see Guru eating this, one day Guru is looking a little fat, next day Guru is looking a little thin. What? Guru is Nitya, eternal, changeless. So here we should understand again, seeing my Guru as the absolute reality only. If I visualize my teacher as the same reality which I am trying to know and understand is now taking the form of my teacher. Means my teacher is my sadhana, it means my teacher is also the goal. That type of vision. My teacher is going to guide me. He is going to provide the sadhana, the means. And my teacher also is Brahma only, the highest reality, Paramatma. So he is also the goal also. So by these words, Bodhamayam, Nityam, what is being pointed out? Understanding, having that right vision about one's Guru as Brahma, as Paramatma, as Bhagavan in that manifestation, by which that Guru becomes not only the means, the path for me, but also the very goal. Vande Bodhamayam Nityam Guru, eternal teacher. Eternal in the sense, as Brahma, as Paramatma, that changeless Paramatma, that absolute reality alone has taken form as Guru. Now one may say, okay, what else should I understand about Guru? So third adjective is given, Vande Shankara Rupinam Guru. Whoever is Guru in my life, that Guru I should understand as Shankara Rupinam. Means Guru is none other than Bhagwan Shiva. Shiva Swarupa. When it said Guru Rupinam means, don't think Guru should wear vibhuti and have a snake around his head. And say, if my Guru has a bhasma all over him and a cobra around his neck, then he is real Guru. And not literally Shankara Rupa as in having the form of Shankara, but Shankara Swarupa means he is none other than the manifestation of Shankara, Bhagavan Shiva. It is said in our Guru Gita, it says if Bhagavan Shiva gets angry, Guru can save you. But if Guru gets angry, so Bhagavan has no chance of saving. Imagine that. If Bhagavan gets angry, Guru can save you. But if Guru gets angry, then not even Bhagavan can save you. So such a position, such a status is given to this Adhyatma Guru in our lives. The one who teaches us this Brahma Vidya, this Atma Jnana, this knowledge of one's true nature. Such a high position is given. Like Bhagavan Shiva, Shankara Swarupa, Bodhamayam, Nityam Guru, he is Sakshat Paramatma. He is the Lord alone in that form, that manifestation. And remember, simply we should understand this bhavana one has towards one's teacher. Our mind does not contaminate the teaching. This is the whole point behind having such a bhavana. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, one of the sadhanas mentioned as being a divine quality, Daivi Sampatti is Acharyopasanam. Acharya Upasana. Single pointed devotion, contemplation on one's teacher. In our tradition, in our Guru Parampara, many brahmacharis, swamis, etc. have taken up such sadhanas of worshipping, doing worship of Guru. Many of us may have Ishta Devatas, selected forms of Lord like Bhagwan Shri Krishna, Bhagwan Shri Rama, Devi, Ganapati, etc. But in our tradition also, even the form of Guru is worshipped. And why is that? Because I want my mind to rest in the teaching of that teacher. And when I worship, contemplate, connect with that teacher, I am able to implement and hold on to that teaching much easier. When I am able to tune with a person, then whatever that person says will be more relevant and applicable, and my mind will be more open to listening to them. Any random person makes any comment about us whom we have no relationship with, that generally doesn't affect us as much as our circle of near and dear ones. If they say something negative about us, means where we have a connection with that person, those words have more impact in our lives. So too, when one has that connection with the teacher, the Guru, then those words also will resonate in our minds. Otherwise, what happens? Guru says, do this, it goes through one ear and comes out the other ear. But that is Guru's intention to give instruction is not just for you to hear nice instruction. It is for you to practice and follow that instruction. So for us to be able to follow, that connection with teacher should be there. And therefore, even the sadhana of worshipping teacher is prescribed in our scriptures. So Goswamiji pointing out this tradition of how one should look, how one should envision one's teacher. Vande bodhamayam gurum, nityam gurum, shankara rupinam gurum. I offer salutations to such Guru. Now, see, Goswamiji knows, understands all of us. This Tulsi Ramayana is written not too long ago, and therefore Goswamiji knows our mindset. We generally have a tendency to, to think in a manner that, if I can learn something on my own, independent thinking, swatantra vichara, I on my own will understand. I will read and I will understand. I don't need any Guru. Many times we ask this question, why do I need Guru? Why can't I do it on my own? Funny enough, we ask this question only when it comes to Vedanta. When it comes to all other fields of knowledge, no one questions why we went to school. Correct? Every other field of knowledge, whether it be medicine or engineering or finance or whatever it may be, has anyone ever questioned why we had to go learn from a teacher? But somehow when it comes to Atma Vidya, when it comes to the spiritual field of knowledge, why I need teacher? So now Goswamiji says, let me tell you why. So first Goswamiji points out here, and later on we will see an entire section on the glory of Guru. Goswamiji just simply puts in this second line of this Mangalacharanam what benefit it is to have Guru in one's life. In our Viveka Chudamani, one text of Bhagwan Shri Shankaracharya Ji, one very beautiful shloka comes. Durlabham trayamevaitat devanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshayah. Bhagwan Shankaracharya says, there is three very rare aspects of one's life if one possesses, understand, it is devanugraha hetukam, that it is the blessings of Bhagwan only. Manushyatvam, to have human body, this is blessing indeed. Understand, you have Bhagwan's blessings. Mumukshutvam, that you have desire to liberate oneself. Understand, you have Bhagwan's blessings. And Mahapurusha Samshaya, that you have the company of Santa Mahatmas. Means to have satsang in my life. That means Bhagwan is showering grace and blessing. Many times we also ask this question. Every time we see, everyone says, Bhagwan's grace, Bhagwan's grace. What is Bhagwan's grace? How do I know I have Bhagwan's grace? Satsang is there or not? Then you know. Bhagwan's grace is there. If satsang is there in my life, Bhagwan's grace is there. If Santa, Mahatma, Guru has come in our life, grace is there. If desire for spiritual knowledge and to achieve the spiritual goal is there, Bhagwan's grace is there. And the very fact that we have this human body is only advocating that only. That yes, Bhagwan's grace and blessings is in our lives. So now, what is the glory of having Guru? So that is given now in second line. Very beautiful metaphor is given to show the glory of having Guru in one's life. So what I said, Yam ashrito hi vakropi chandra sarvatra vandyate. It is said just as the Chandraha, the moon, that moon which is seated on the jata, on the hair of Bhagwan Shiva, that crescent moon is Vakraha. Vakraha means what? Vakraha means crooked, twisted. So if you look carefully at a picture of Bhagwan Shiva, you will see on that jata there is a crescent moon and it is crooked. I don't know how many of you all, when you go to people's houses, you pay attention to whether those paintings and pictures, whether the frames are straight on it. If you have OCD or something, then you know anywhere you go and you see anything out of line, even a little bit, you put it in place. So we can't do that with Bhagwan Shiva. We can't tell Bhagwan Shiva, oh Bhagwan Shiva, that moon is a little crooked, please put it in place. You can't tell Bhagwan Shiva that. But what is said here, in Jyotish Shastra, in our astrology Shastra, in our Sanatana Dharma, this crooked moon, this crescent moon is not considered very auspicious. In fact, a lot of our mental disturbances happens at certain times based on the positions of the moon. And this crescent moon is not considered to be Shubha. But somehow, when this crescent moon associated with Bhagwan Shiva is remembered, is contemplated upon, then we worship the crescent moon on the head of Bhagwan Shiva. Means that crescent moon by itself is considered inauspicious. It is considered to be a sign of calamity, some disaster about to happen. But somehow when it is associated with Bhagwan Shiva, then Bhagwan gets the name Chandrasekharaya Namo, Gangadharaya Namo. We say Chandrasekhara, oh, the Lord who is having that crescent moon. That moon which is considered inauspicious by itself, that crescent moon, in association with Bhagwan Shiva, it is sung and praised. So what is said here, just as this crescent moon in association with Bhagwan Shiva, Sarvatra Vandyate, it becomes worshipable, worshipful. It is worshipped everywhere. Even though by itself, Vakraha, crooked, Ashubha, inauspicious. In association with Bhagwan Shiva, it becomes an object of worship. We sing and chant now, Chandrasekhara. Bhagwan Shiva. Bhagwan Shiva himself gets a name, Chandrasekhara, associated with that crescent moon. So just as that inauspicious crescent moon by itself is not worshipable, when in association with Bhagwan Shiva is considered to be divine, so too Yam Ashritaha, those who take support. Yam Ashritaha means those who take Ashraya, those who take support in whom? In Guru. Those who take support in Guru means those who possess, those who have Guru in their lives and take support of Guru, then they also, even if we may have any crooked tendencies, crooked personality, crooked qualities, even that crookedness also will become divine. Means our personality will become purer, more selfless, more divine. And if you look also at our Guru Parampara, our Swami Tapobanji Maharaj, Param Guru. Due to the grace and blessings of Param Guru, our Puja Gurudev was given so much respect and radiance in the tradition. Because of Puja Gurudev, Puja Guruji, Swami Tejwananji, has gotten so much radiance and respect. Because of Puja Guruji, Puja Swami Swarupananji has gotten so much respect, reverence and adoration. Means what? The Shishya, the student, in association with Guru, that Shishya also is lifted, adored and revered. By himself or herself, apart from Guru, they may have been respected or given reverence and respect, but not in comparison with the one who is associated with the Guru. For us, we should understand our association with Guru in our lives, with teacher in our lives, that only can help us to divinize our personality. Open up our hearts to the teaching, to loving Bhagwan, to connecting with scripture and the highest good. Yam ashritaha, taking support in whom? Those who take support in Guru, who come in contact with, association with, who surrender to Guru, then they also become divine. Means what? Do I need Guru? Well, I leave that question up to each one of us to answer. See, let us say I have a map. I want to get from Bombay to Delhi. I have map. But I have timeline, as in I need to get there in less than 24 hours. I want to go from Bombay to Delhi and I have to get there in 24 hours. Map is there. Which means or instrument I should take up? Which mode of transportation I should use to get there in that designated time? Will the map tell me? The map will not tell me the most efficient, quickest way to reach my destination. The map shows me all possible means to reach my destination, but doesn't tell me which one is most efficient to me. Guru is like that in our lives. See, so many spiritual practices, sadhanas are given in our scriptures. But which one applies to me at what stage in my life? When should I take it up? When should I drop it? Who will know? Shastra is like a roadmap, scripture is like roadmap. All the avenues for heading to my spiritual goal is given. But which one is applicable to me? Each one of us have different personality types. And our scriptures give very beautifully. We like to, in our, like Swami Prakashananda and many Swami, they say buffet style. Buffet means what? You don't get only one option. Several options. So many different spiritual practices. Japa, puja, meditation, contemplation. So many sadhanas. But which one is applicable to me? Which one is most beneficial to me? How will I know? Will that map tell me? Those of us who study Bhagavad Gita many times, and especially if we have completed the entire study of Bhagavad Gita, at one place it will say Karma Yoga is best. At another place it will say Bhakti Yoga is best. And at another place in Bhagavad Gita it says Jnana Yoga is best. Now you make up, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, make up your mind. What is really best? One place you say Karma Yoga, then you say Bhakti Yoga, then you say Jnana. Can't make up your mind, Bhagavan. So how we should understand? For that specific adhikari, for that specific target audience, keeping in mind a certain type of sadhaka, Bhagavan will say Karma Yoga is best for him. So based on my disposition, my personality, the sadhanas are prescribed, the spiritual practices are prescribed. And who is going to be the one to help me to prescribe? But somehow we are funny. Do we prescribe our own medicine, or we have to go to doctor to get prescription? When it comes to medicine in our lives, medications, we have to go get prescription. We can do our own prescription. But somehow when it comes to spiritual disease, Bhava Roga, the disease of samsara, we do our swatantra prescription. Our own independent prescription we are prescribing. So, if we want to really remedy this Bhava Roga, this disease called samsara, then we have to get the right prescription. The medicine is available, no doubt, in the form of the scripture. But who will prescribe what medicine to treat that specific ailment? Who will be that prescribing element in our lives? Who will be that doctor in our lives? Guru. Guru Tattva, that Guru, that absolute reality who is in the form of teacher alone, will be the one to prescribe me what is appropriate for me at that current stage in my life. Many times also we take up sadhanas on our own. We say, I am going to do this sadhana. But every sadhana that is given in our scriptures is actually meant only for a certain stage of our life. Sadhanas in our spiritual field are first external, outer. And then as we grow and evolve, they become subtle, and subtler means they become more inward, introverted sadhanas. So at our start of our journey, we are told do a lot of karma, a lot of puja, japa, external, chanting, singing, karma, seva, so many things. And then as we evolve and grow, we are asked to now spend more time internally doing sadhana, mental sadhana. But who will be the one to tell me when to pick up, when to drop that sadhana? When should I transition from this sadhana to another sadhana? When have I accomplished the goal for which I took up that earlier sadhana, because of which now I can take up another sadhana? Who will tell me? So map by itself is not enough. What about guru without map? No, both ways also is not ideal, huh? Map by itself is very dangerous if we do not know which path to take. Now, guru without map? I leave that for all of us to think about. What about if guru is there now but no map is there? Therefore, very nicely our acharyas have coined this acronym GPS. Guru, Parampara and Shastra. GPS. What is going to guide us? The two. Guru and also Shastra. Scriptures along with Guru. So I need the guide, the pointer, and I also need the map. Together I can reach my spiritual destination. But you think over it. What if I have Guru but no map? What would be the challenge if map is not there but Guru is there? Map is there but Guru is not there, we have already seen. But what if map is not there but Guru is there? Ideal situation is map and Guru is there. But what if map is not there? Then what? So you please think over that. Alright. So, Vande Bodhamayam Gurum, Nityam Gurum, Shankara Rupinam Gurum. I offer salutations to Guru, who is none other than that Paramatma of the nature of consciousness, that eternal Lord who is Shankara Rupinam, of the very form, manifestation of Shiva in my life. To that Guru I offer salutations, taking support in whom, just as that crescent moon, though inauspicious by itself, in association with Bhagwan Shiva is worshipped, so too I, this crooked person, Goswamiji is saying, I, this crooked individual, in association with you, O Guru, I also am made divine. I also divinize my personality. What is the name of Goswamiji's Guru? We saw in the first class. Narahari Ananda. This is the name of Goswamiji's Guru. Narahari Ananda, who gave him Gayatri Mantra Diksha and Vaishnava Diksha, Rama Mantra. So Goswamiji remembering his Guru, Narahari Ananda. He said, Vande Bodhamayam Guru. I offer salutations. Now, why did I say this shloka is unique, this Mangalacharana is unique? You see, if you look at the other previous two Mangalacharana shlokas, they all were speaking of two entities, two deities of worship. First had Ganesh and Saraswati, Bhagwan and Devi. Then Parvati Mata and Bhagwan Shiva. But Guru is given an entire shloka exclusively to him only. Which means what? In our tradition, Guru takes even higher position than Bhagavan also. Such is the tradition of our Guru Parampara, that Guru takes higher position. That is why I mentioned earlier in Guru Gita, it said, Bhagavan Shiva gets angry, Guru can save you. Now Guru gets angry, so what can we do? Guru takes even more exalted position in our tradition. So offering salutations exclusively. No sharing of the shloka with anyone. Only Guru is to be offered salutations and worshipped. So Bhagwan Ganesha and Mata Saraswati, Bhagwan Shiva and Mother Parvati, and now exclusively offering salutations to Guru. Now who comes next? So let us see our fourth Mangalacharana. So Rupam, you can repeat after me. Sitaram Gunagram Punyaranya Viharino.
Sitaram Gunagram Punyaranya Viharino.
Vande Vishuddha Vijnanam.
Vande Vishuddha Vijnanam.
Kavishwara Kapishwaro. Together everyone. Sitaram Gunagrama Punyaranya Viharano. Vande Vishuddha Vijnanam. Kavishwara Kapishwaro. Now again, coming back to offering salutations to two. Vande, so second line, Vande Kavishwara Kapishwarao. Goswami says, I am now offering salutations, prostrations to Kavishwara and Kapishwara. Kavishwara Kapishwarao. So that all dual, talking about two, like Vani Vinayakao, Bhavani Shankarao, Kavishwara Kapishwarao. So that all is referring to dual. So I offer salutations to Kavishwara and Kapishwara. Now, we have to think here, this is a little bit tricky. Kavishwara is whom? So Kavi means poet. Kavishwara means the one who is known as the best amongst all poets. So who is being referred to by Kavishwara? Rishi Valmiki. Valmiki Rishi is called as Adi Kavi, the first poet, because the very first poetry that was done in our traditional scripture was the Valmiki Ramayana, the first form of poetry. So he is called as Adi Kavi, the very first poet. So Kavishwara is referring to Maharishi Valmiki. Kapishwara, who is the Ishwara of all kapis, of all monkeys? So I don't know about you all, but I know Sugriva was the king. Was Sugriva not the king of the monkey, of the Vanara army? So he should be Kapishwara. The best amongst all Kavis is Valmiki Rishi, that I understand. But Kapishwara is the lord of all monkeys. So the king of all monkeys was Sugriva, and then Angad became king, his nephew. But interestingly enough, Goswamiji is not offering suggestions to Sugriva or Angad. But whom is being offered suggestions here? Here Kapishwara means Hanumanji. Means what? Hanumanji is the real king. Sugriv externally may have been king of the army outward. But the real king, and king means what? Leader, visionary. The real visionary in that Vanara army, in that army of monkeys, the real leader, the real visionary was Hanumanji. Hanumanji was the best of the entire Kishkinda. But even though he had greater knowledge, greater strength, greater power than Sugriva and all other monkeys, he always remained as Dasa, Sevak. And this is the greatness of Hanumanji. That even though he was the best of them, that never corrupted his humility. That never corrupted his love for the Lord. Even though he had surpassed strength, wisdom, Jnana, Bhakti, Vairagya, surpassing all other monkeys, he always remained at the feet of Bhagwan Shri Rama. Therefore, he is Kapishwara only. Not, you see, to be a leader, we need not wear a crown or have a title. Leadership is great virtues. And living up to that great virtue and that great vision, that is called being a leader. That I may get external appreciation and commemoration, that is not sign of leadership. Anyone can become president of United States or any other country. Does that mean I am a leader? Leader is the one who has great principles, virtues, and lives up to that. That is called leader. That is called visionary. So who is visionary leader of the monkey army? Who is Kapishwara? Hanumanji only. Therefore, Goswami says, now I offer salutations to Valmiki Rishi, Kavishwara, the best amongst all poets, and Kapishwara, the very best of all monkeys, Hanumanji. What do they do? How do they spend their time? This Kavishwara and Kapishwara. Goswami says, let me tell you what these two great beings, what they do. They are always playing games. What? Playing games? Huh? Vihari now. They are both doing vihara. Vihara means what? Vihara means sporting, playing. So you are offering salutations to people who are playing sports only, playing games only. He says, yeah, but their type of game is very different. Valmiki Rishi and Hanumanji, Kavishwara and Kapishwara, they are playing game, no doubt. They are having vihara. But they do different type of game. What type of game? Goswami says, they are sporting in Aranya, in forest. In forest, what are they playing? Hide and seek? Hunting? What are they doing? In forest? Say, no. Not any ordinary forest. Punya Aranya. In the forest of Punya, in the forest of all spiritual merit, they are sporting, playing. In the forest of merit? What is there in that forest of merit? Goswami says, Sita Rama Guna Grama. There is a grama, village in that forest. A village where the glory, the guna, the glory of Sita and Rama are present. In that village of Sita Rama Guna, which is in Punyaranya, which is in the forest of Punya, these two, Valmiki Rishi and Hanumanji, they are playing, sporting. Means what? Valmiki Rishi and Hanumanji, their minds are ever reveling in the glories of Bhagwan Sri Rama and Sita Mata. Their minds are constantly reveling there. Our minds are reveling where? In which Aranya, in which Grama? We only think about, what will happen tomorrow, what will happen day after tomorrow. If I do this, what will I gain? If I don't do this, how will I, change that outcome? All the time we are cause effect, cause effect, cause effect. If I do this, what will happen? If I don't do this, what will happen? But Kavishwara and Kapishwara, Valmiki Rishi and Hanumanji, what is their thinking? Punyaranya, they are only reveling Vihara, they are spotting only in the Leela of Bhagwan Shri Ram and Sita Mata. They are residing in the forest of Punya. Means, due to Punya, due to great spiritual merit, due to great spiritual radiance, their minds are fixed on, in that village, their mind is seated in the village of the virtues and greatness and glory of Bhagwan Shri Ram and Sita Mata. And therefore, to those two great seers, Hanumanji and Valmiki Rishi, I offer salutations and prostrations. Not only that, one more adjective is given for them. Vande Vishuddha Vijnano. They both have Vishuddha Vijnana. Now this word is fascinating. For those who have a little background in Sanskrit, it is most beautiful. I'll tell you how. See, Jnana word we know, Jnana means knowledge. Then to the word Jnana you add the prefix Vi. Vijnana it becomes. Vijnana means now direct knowledge, immediate knowledge, doubtless knowledge. Then you add the word Shuddha. So Jnana, then you add Vi, Vijnana. Then Shuddha means pure, uncontaminated, free of any confusion. So Shuddha Vijnana. Then you add Vishuddha. So Shuddha Vijnana, you add the prefix Vi. Now Vi means absolutely clear. So Vishuddha Vijnana. Jnana itself is a big word. You add Vi, Vijnana. Then Shuddha, Shuddha Vijnana. Then Vi, Vishuddha Vijnana. Means what is meant here? Valmiki Rishi's knowledge, Hanumanji's knowledge, spotless, pure, uncontaminated, free of any bias, free of any personal raga or dvesha, likes or dislikes. See, in any field of knowledge, anything that we study, in certain areas we will have clarity, in certain areas we will have doubts or confusions, or sometimes erroneous notions. This Vishuddha Vijnana means what? Clarity, no doubts, no confusions, no erroneous notions. And also means Hanumanji and Valmiki Rishi, they are also, because of that purity of mind, they also are Sarvagnya, all-knowing. This Vishuddha Vijnana word also points out Maharishi Valmiki and Hanumanji are Sarvagnya, all-knowing. All-knowing means what? All-knowing means their minds have diluted its individuality to such an extent that they are able to connect to the infinite cosmic storehouse of all knowledge. See, right now, because we are very self-centered, right now our access of knowledge only limited to our mind and our experiences associated with our mind. But the more and more I can dilute my individuality, I can connect to the total mind. In Vedanta, this total mind is called Hiranyagarbha. So my ability to connect to total mind means I have access to the entire composite of knowledge of the total mind. And for that I need an extremely pure subtle mind, which is what Hanumanji and Valmiki Rishi possesses. So they are also able to access the total mind, all knowledge, therefore they are Sarvagnya. So two meanings of this Vishuddha Vijnana means total clarity, no doubts, no confusions, no erroneous notions. which is what when we study Vedanta also, this is what we are seeking. Knowledge with clarity, no doubts, no confusions, etc. No erroneous notions. And also, this Vishuddha Vijnana word also indicates Sarvagnya Swarupa, being all-knowing, because they have connected to the total mind, having access to the entire storehouse of all knowledge. So to that, Valmiki Rishi, Maharishi and Hanumanji, these all-knowing great seers, those who are spotting, reveling in this Punya Aranya, this most meritorious forest in the village of Sita Rama Guna, in spotting in the glories of Bhagwan Shri Ram and Sita Mata, to these two great saints, I offer my salutations. Goswamiji does Vandana, prostrations. So Bhagwan Shri Ganesha, Saraswati Mata. Bhagwan Shiva, Parvati Mata. Then exclusively Guru. And finally we saw today Valmiki Rishi, Kavishwara and Kapishwara, Hanumanji. Vande, 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 Vande. Therefore, I offer prostration salutations. And we should think about this. Generally, offering salutations once we think is enough. Goswami goes on doing this Vandana, Vandana, Vandana again and again and again. Why? We have to think about it. So two things I have asked us to think about today. What if Guru is there but map is not there? First one I want you all to think over. And secondly, why Vandana, Vandana again? Just prostrate once, no? That much is enough. Again and again, Vandana, Vandana. We are not done. This Vandana goes on for very long. So we may wonder, why this again and again prostrating, prostrating, prostrating? Back and neck must be hurting. How much prostrating we will do? So think over this. Why all this Vandana, Vandana, Vandana? Alright? Prostration, prostration, prostration. Okay. Now time to... Who should we remember now? Our specially invited guests. Veera Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Veera Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Veera Maruti, Ati Veera Maruti, Veera Maruti, Ati Veera Maruti, Geeta Maruti, Sangeeta Maruti, Geeta Maruti, Sangeeta Maruti, Duta Maruti, Ramaduta Maruti, Duta Maruti, Ramaduta Maruti, Bhakta Maruti, Parama Bhakta Maruti, Bhakta Maruti, Parama Bhakta Maruti, Veera Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Gambhira Maruti, Gambhira Maruti. Pavanaputra Hanuman ki jai, Syavar Ramachandra ki jai, Sab Santan ki jai, Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki jai. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Now what should we say to each other? Sita Ram. Hari Om everyone, Sita Ram. Do join us again tomorrow for our fourth night of this Ramayana Tulsi Ramayana Yajna. Hari Om, Sita Ram.